All right. This is weird. I don't know how to transition. Normally I would say, give it up for so-and-so, and then I like scurry off.
I'm kind of thinking about the same. I don't know what to do. Do I like play something and be like, bye? Like, I don't know.
But tonight is different because I am the presenter. And as promised, I will be talking about the election. We have a new president, and with that comes mixed emotions. There usually is after an election. There's always the winners and the losers. There's always joy from one side because they feel as though their voices were heard, the policies that they fought for are finally going to be put in place. They have overcome every obstacle, and they have used their American right to fight for what matters to them, and they've got it, and that's something that's commended. And then on the other side, you're going to have people that feel a sense of grief. Maybe not for long term, but they feel maybe their voice wasn't heard. Maybe their ideas didn't matter. Maybe they didn't know as much as they thought they did, and there's doubt, there's just so many emotions. And I've been thinking and praying on this all last night. Usually when I give a message, I have a tendency to procrastinate, but I try to have it prepared at least a day. And as I was watching last night and throughout the week, there was just nothing I could figure out to say until I knew what the result was. I just wasn't going to know how I felt, what was inside me, what Christ was telling me until I knew the result. Normally, we see elections, and they're always a circus, right? They're always a circus. Oh, so-and-so is the greatest to ever come about. How can you not vote for them? So-and-so will destroy this country. They're going to ruin it. They're going to leave it in ruins. And we get through it, and we get down to two people that just have differences in ideology, differences in policy, and we vote, and we deal with the winner. And what happens? Some things get worse, some things get better, and we still come to church, we eat our cake, we drink our coffee, nobody dies, the sun doesn't burn out, and we go forward. And this election somehow just felt so far removed from the normal. Depending on who you talk to, I could talk to my boss who was the staunchest conservative, and he assured me, if I voted for Hillary, she's a crook, she will destroy this country, nukes will fall from the sky. I could talk to somebody else and they could assure me if I voted for Trump, nobody would have any rights anymore. They're gone. Just like that, vanished, poof. And also nukes from the sky. And then I could talk to a Gary Johnson supporter, but they weren't talkative because they were really high at the time. But it was just so much more polarized than I think any of us could anticipate. And I talked about it a little bit last week, because we get so upset with our government, the direction it's going. And I think we have a tendency to treat the government as though it exists on its own. It just happens, and it just gets in our way. It messes things up, and how do we stop it? And maybe I'm crazy, but I'm a big believer that the government we have says less about the government and more about us as citizens. I believe the quality of our government is based on the quality of our voting and the quality of our participation in the voting process. And when I see the numbers come in, and I thought it was going to be astronomical numbers that we were going to have. You would have just assured nobody was going to sit this one out, and it was like lower than it's been since the year 2000. It didn't come anywhere close to my expectations. So people just sat out. When only a third of the country really got up and said, we're going to do something about this. So I'm not surprised that 2/3 of us are like, wait, what? How did this happen? But that's where we are, right? We know where we've been. We know how the process was. We know the circus. But it's over. Thank God it's over. And Donald Trump whether you like it or not, is the President of the United States of America. He will take office in January. And we can spend all the time in the world upset with ourselves. We can blame Republicans. We can blame Democrats. Oh, why didn't this Republican run? Why didn't the DNC listen to Bernie? We can do all that. But it's irrelevant. It's over. We can't go back in time. The book is written in ink, not in pencil, and it's been printed. So now we get to talk about the fun part. Where do we go from here? As Christians, where do we go? And as I've been thinking about this, I've been praying about this, we're defined a lot by how we win, and we're defined a lot by how we lose. When we win, how do we handle it? Do we handle it with grace, humility? Do we reach our hands out to those that feel as though they've lost something? Do we reach out and say, I'm with you? Do not feel like you are forgotten? Or do we pull our hand away? Do we say, ha ha, loser, and we move on? And when we lose, and sometimes we're more defined by that. If you feel like you lost in this election, are you angry? Are you bitter? Are you attacking people on the winning side? Are you attacking people on your own side? How are you handling that? Are you handling that with grace? Are you handling that with humility? Are you reaching out across the aisle to say, congratulations on your victory. Take me with you. Because, I think a lot about the body of Christ. It's a big thing. It's a big thing in the Bible that we are the body. And simplifying it down to politics, the body cannot work if the right hand and the left hand will not come together. If the right hand and the left hand will not come together, we cannot lift anybody up. It's impossible. So how do we bring those two sides together? So I've thought about it, I've prayed about it, because I don't want to see people get on and say, that's not my president. I don't want to see people get on and say, I hope he fails. I don't want to see people get on and say, we got to protest, we got to riot, we got to burn flags. I don't want to see people say, sucks to be you, I told you so, I was right all along. Back to where you belong. I don't want to see that. We don't need that. We can never do anything good with that. And I think a lot about Christ. I think a lot about the moment when he got up on that cross and he died for all of us. Every single one of us. He didn't get up there and die for the winners, for the champions, for the righteous, for the people that did it right their whole lives. He died for everyone. Even the people that put him up there, that were glad to see him go, he asked God to forgive them because he died for them as well. And that's powerful. To show that unconditional love to every single person, whether they were someone we regarded in the highest of highs or in the lowest of lows. Whether they were one of the elites or whether they were in a basket of deplorables. He loved them all. They all mattered the same. And I look at where we are. We have a president. He is our president. He's not just the president of the people who voted for him. He's not just the president of the Republicans. He is our president. He's the president for the Democrats, for the liberals. He's the president for Jill Stein's followers, for Gary Johnson's followers. He's the president for all of us. And it's our job now to help him. It's our job now to work together, to find a way to put our differences aside. And we should be good at it. We're Methodists. We follow the great John Wesley, the circles. It's one of my favorite concepts. It's one of my favorite things about John Wesley was circles. He didn't believe in talking at people. He believed in talking with people. His belief was if you sat in a circle, you could think and let think. You could agree to disagree. As long as you came together at the end of the day about God's love for us, about loving our one and only God, about loving our neighbor as we love ourselves. As long as we came back together in a place of love for the wonderful Lord and Savior that we have in our lives, we could discuss anything openly and honestly without fear. It's such a beautiful concept. I have the privilege of getting to face all of you every week. You guys sit in like a pew format, and I don't have to be subjected to that. I get to see everybody. And I get to talk to you in the gathering space, before the show, after the show. I've agreed with some of you on things. I've disagreed with some of you on things. But every time I leave this room, I love you more than when I walked in. And it's overwhelming. And it's sappy, and it's really sappy, but it's overwhelming because we find a way to find the things that we have in common. And we have so many things in common. Okay? We do. We have more things in common than we don't. And that's what brings us together. And it's through that love of Christ that we are able to find those things. Through open conversations that we can talk to each other, we can listen to each other, and we can find those things. Because I look at some of what's going on, I listen to some of the commentary after the election, and I read posts from parents this morning that their kids were upset because they didn't like the Trump they saw in the commercials. They didn't know what kind of person he was. I saw adults that were upset because of the words that we use in a heated campaign. He is the president. We are going to support this man. And I'm not going to harp on it like some holier-than-thou person. I think it's okay to talk about not everything that was said in his campaign was great all the time. That's fair, okay? I think it's a bipartisan thing. Not everything was fair. Some things were easily misconstrued as being racist or sexist or whatever. But if I've learned anything from God, it's that if we feel those ways, if we feel those things are bad, that he shouldn't have said them, that what he said was wrong, we're never going to change his heart by screaming at him and screaming at the people that supported him. Hate will never drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin Luther King. When Jesus came to us, and we were messing up a lot, we still do. So many things have changed since the time Jesus walked the earth, but human nature has been pretty constant. But when Jesus walked among us, he didn't yell at us, he didn't shout at us, he didn't condemn us. He walked with us. He wrapped his arms around us, and he showed us a better way. If you are someone out there and you feel that something he has said, if you feel that something a supporter said has hurt you, I don't want you to react with anger, with hatred. I don't want you to push them away. I want you to walk with them as far as they want to walk. And I want you to show them the love you would like to see in the world if you don't feel it's already there. It's so hard to live like Christ. It is. We come to church, we worship, we read the scriptures, we hear the pastors, we stand, and we lift our hands up for the music. But when we leave, it is so hard to apply that in our lives. And it's so much more difficult in the middle of one of the most heated, polarizing elections that I hope this country will never see again. It is so hard. But if Christ can do it, and he can die, and he died for us knowing that we can do it too, I have to believe we can. This isn't the first time our country has had turmoil. It's been covered in turmoil since the beginning. From when we first left England and had the Revolutionary War, to when Susan B. Anthony got arrested in 1872 because she wasn't allowed to vote. From when Martin Luther King had to march through racism for the Civil Rights Movement. From the Trail of Tears when we encountered the Native Americans, from the internment camps we just never talk about during World War II. We've had hard times before. And I'm not saying this is a hard time. That's totally a matter of perspective. But if we can overcome legit tragedies and hard times in this country, and we can find a way to band together, to unite around our leaders, to rely on God and to trust in God in everything we do, then I have to believe we're going to be just fine. If you look at the Old Testament, I think it's in Jeremiah, the rich people in Jerusalem, they were messing up a lot, you guys. Really pissing Jesus off. I mean, pissing God off, sorry. Messing up all the time. So he exiled them. He was like, all right, you're gonna learn today. And he sent them to Babylon. He exiled them, gave them nothing, and said, start over. But even in those times, they found prosperity again because God never left them. And they kept their faith in God, even in times they thought they would never get out of. God is always with us. He is always in control. Every second, every minute, every hour of every day. Regardless of who's president of this country, who's the prime minister in Australia, whatever Britain's doing, God is in control always. And you can always rest in that. You can rest knowing he loves you. You can rest knowing that that love lives inside you, and you can share that with everyone, regardless of the outcome of an election or something as small as a football game, whatever. That love is always inside you. It can always be shared. You're transparent. It shines through you. So however you're feeling, it's anger, whatever, let it go. God is in control. He's walking with us. He's talking to us. His arms are around us. So it's time for us to have our arms around each other and to keep them there. To sit in circles, not with our backs to each other. To have that right and the left hand work together. To be the body that God envisioned we would be. To lift people up and to not push them down. Let us pray. Gracious and holy God, we are just so blessed, so thankful that no matter what happens in our lives, no matter what leaders we have here on earth, it is you that is always in control. That there are never any coincidences, there's never any mistakes, that everything that you put before us is for us to learn, for us to chew over, and for us to use to come together to walk through everything we need to walk through, to shine lights on everyone that needs it, and ultimately to learn your way so that not just we can go home, but we can bring everyone around us with us, to bring them home, to the end goal, no matter what short-term thing we see, we can get past it because we continue to look up, arm in arm as we march towards the heavens, knowing you have us, you love us, you died for all of us because you believed in us. So should we believe in ourselves. Gracious God, we are so thankful for you. And we lift everything we have to you. All our happiness, all our sadness, everything is yours. And in return, we know eternal life will be ours. It is in your name we pray. Amen. All right. And now an uplifting reflection song as we remember the election, and then forget it forever. The election is over, and so is this service. So until next week, have a great week. Find somebody, tell them you love them, talk to them, and find a way to build relationships. Until then, be Christ for one another. Thank you, and have a good night, guys.
Amen.